If your business depends on your mood, better you go and be an employee. Simple as that. Work for someone else, build somebody else's dream. Regardless of how you feel, the business doesn't care how you feel. People are buying your energy. There's nothing worse than getting the wrong attention from your content on LinkedIn and you can't convert that attention. It's nothing worse than looking like you're doing really well when in actual fact your bank account says something different.
Hi, Charlotte, once again. Thank you for joining. I'm extremely glad we're doing this one. And before we get into sales, buyers, LinkedIn, AI, and all of that, for people meeting you for the first time, what do you usually do? Who do you usually work with? And what do you actually help fix?
So I am Charlotte Lloyd. I'm the founder of the Client Acquisition Club. And what that is, it's an exclusive membership. It's a high ticket coaching program where I train and coach founders, coaches, consultants, solo operators. You might have a small team even as well, to actually sell the right way. Again, these people could be at various stages in their business, and to leverage LinkedIn and also not leverage LinkedIn to be able to get more clients or sell at a higher ticket and to be able to attract opportunities. So it's both demand creation and demand generation that I help my clients with.
Nowadays, a lot of founders hear sales problem and immediately think they need more leads, right? More content and just more output and DMs, right?
Sometimes they do, but most of the time the leads are kind of sitting there hidden, but they're not starting conversations or they've started the wrong conversations with them. So that's meant that they haven't had a great time perhaps, and they actually can't see what they've got there and they're not converting it in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was interested in, more into how buyers actually move from interest to trust, right? And from a good conversation to actual decision to spend money, right?
Yeah, exactly. And part of that trust is built through content. So somebody even asked me today, if I don't post any content, can I still get clients? And I said, well, you can still do outreach, but it's not going to have the same kind of effect. The content is like the gravity that attracts people to you, that builds your authority, that, people, that trust, right? People are only going to spend money with you if they trust you. And they've also got to trust themselves as well, depending on what service it is, but especially when they work with me. So content builds that trust. Obviously, it's doing what I call the heavy lifting, and you actually reaching out, qualifying, having a proper conversation is what's going to book meetings. And what do meetings do? Meetings convert to sales. So usually when I speak with founders, they either haven't been prioritizing that, they have prioritized it, it hasn't worked, they've outsourced it to a lead gen agency too soon and it's backfired, or they kind of think they don't need it. Oh, I'm fine, I'm doing fine, so I don't need it. And that can be a bit of complacency as well. So premium buyers, they make decisions based on trust. And especially now in the age of AI, trust has got a new meaning. We need to really, really show that we are the person that they can trust. They need to feel it more now than they did than ever.
I mean, at the end of the day, the first step is to actually show that we're actual people, right? There's actual person behind the screen, not just ChatGPT prompt, right?
Exactly. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people using ChatGPT in the wrong way. And it's just, that's eroding trust. We see it with LinkedIn comments. I get LinkedIn DMs, which are blatantly AI. I mean, even I've trained AI on my voice, so I do use AI, but it's so, it's so difficult to detect that it is AI. And that's the thing that, you can't just be sending messages. You've got to also send voice notes or video to show that you are a bit different. And I think this is where people are just, sometimes they're lazy, they don't want to do it, or they're afraid, or they don't know how to do it, so they don't do it.
That's useful because it sounds like the buyer doesn't always need more information. They need clarity as well, right? And that comes from the actual person.
So buyer-led selling is basically them realizing that you have to ask them questions where they realize that they have a problem and they need to actually convince you, not you convince them, that it's something that they need to solve. And the way that we do that is by asking really good questions.
Yeah. I mean, in whole buyer-led selling on that topic, what does that mean in real life, and what do usually people misunderstand about that?
I think they think it means the buyer can like get away with everything. It's not that at all. It's a term that it hasn't really been used, but it's a term where you are the one in control. You're ultimately the one that's the authority. But you have to also consider that how the buyer will sell themselves, right? The buyer has to sell themselves on either booking a meeting with you or working with you. And it literally means leaning in and understanding where the buyer is, right? Not making it about you, bro selling and all that kind of thing. It really is, we ask the right questions so that they will then realize this is either something they have to solve or not. But we're putting them at the forefront of our messaging, right? We want to earn the right to get a reply or response. And by doing that, we're focusing on them in how, they can tell us and sell back to us why they might need to work with us.
Yeah, I feel that some people hear buyer-led and then become too passive sometimes even.
Yeah, I guess it's maybe it's confusing. Maybe it's like people get confused with it. The buyer has to be ready to buy. I mean, and sometimes they might not feel ready, but ultimately you have to guide them on what they need to do. So it's not that you sit back and are passive and are like, oh, we'll let the buyer do whatever they want. It's not about that at all. It's helping the buyer realize that they need to make a change.
Exactly. And how do you guide the buyer without making them feeling cornered?
Yeah, that's the thing. So it depends. Where are we talking about? DMs? Are we talking about calls? Are we talking about content? You need to ask the right diagnostic type questions to understand if they have a problem. Is that problem causing enough impact that they need to solve it? What obstacles are getting in the way? And where do they want to get to? What does success look like if they no longer have that problem? So that's the kind of that's the format of the questions that we need to ask in the DMs to understand if we can help. If we feel we can help, then we can ask for the meeting, but we have to go through that specific questioning arc because we want them to realize that actually, yeah, this is something I need to solve now. Is it something I might need to solve later? And oftentimes, we think, oh, they're not ready to buy when actually they are. So it's about putting them first, but it's also understanding when we need to challenge them on where they are right now.
And a lot of founders today are saying I'm getting attention, but I'm not getting enough clients, right?
They're either saying, yeah, I'm getting attention, but that attention isn't converting into clients. Or I'm kind of happy with the clients that I've got. Usually there's something missing there as well. So they've either focused a lot on personal branding, on marketing. They haven't really prioritized the sales stuff. And that's another thing. It's like people can be quite complacent. So yeah, it's, when I look at and analyze the people that I work with, it really is, there's so many opportunities that are sitting right in front of them that they're not seeing.
And that's such a founder problem, I think, especially for smaller ones. From the outside, I feel it looks sometimes to them like a momentum, right? But inside is business that's stuck in a way, right?
Yeah, it's business that's stuck because they're either, they don't know how to initiate those conversations, move them forward. They have no sales experience and they sort of leave it and think, well, if the person really wants to work with me, they'll reach out to me, which is an error, right? It's a real error. We need to think, who can I help? Where's my next client coming from is a healthy question to be asking every single day. How many meetings do I need to book to get the conversion that I need? If I want to close one deal a week, well, then I need to be having at least 5 conversations a week, and I need to be closing at least one of those conversations. So a lot of people overcomplicate it, or they overthink it, and therefore they don't do it. And, you know, for most people who don't have sales experience, the outreach part is not easy, right? It's not an easy thing. So once you have a system and a process, it's the discipline and consistency that you need to keep that going so that it's going to keep on delivering.
Exactly. I mean, attention is not pipeline and interest is not commitment in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, are you getting the right attention? If you are getting a lot of attention, why are you not converting it? Is it the right attention? Because there's nothing worse than getting the wrong attention from your content on LinkedIn and you can't convert that attention. You know, it's nothing worse than looking like you're doing really well when in actual fact your bank account says something different. So a lot of people confuse attention. And of course, you know, if you're going to get a lot of attention on LinkedIn, you're obviously getting to people who you can't help, right? Because that's the nature of how the algorithm works. You know, you do a viral post, it's going to reach people who are not part of your niche, who do not need your help. You know, it's like, oh, I had a viral post, it got 1,200 likes and I got like 1,000 followers or something a few years ago. But great. How many of those people turned into clients? None of them. So
exactly.
And I have had a couple of clients from viral posts, but you know, they've come from posts that are way different to that. So we also need to realize that LinkedIn is getting more crowded, that there's more noise and the posts are not converting the way they used to. You know, everybody is telling me this. Everybody seems to be feeling this. You've got to be prepared that you need to do different things. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. What do we have control over? Well, we can control our inputs and our pipeline. We can control the conversations we start. Usually, if we're having enough of the right conversations, we're going to be onto a good thing, right? If we're doing the daily fundamentals and reaching out, that's one step. That's a step in the right direction, not waiting for content to do it or for kind of deals to magically appear, because they don't.
Exactly. And where do founders usually mistake interest for real buying intent?
Where do they mistake interest for real buying intent? That's a good question. Sometimes I think they see the interest, but they don't see the buying intent because they don't ask the right questions to uncover the buying intent. So often good conversations can die, or they're too friendly because the founder really isn't focused on, you know, the buying intent there. So, you know, I always say, look at who viewed your profile, who followed or connected or engaged. They might not be ready to buy now, but a lot of them, most of my clients come to me from that, right? They're actually showing some kind of intent, but I need to go deeper and have a conversation with them to actually understand that that's something they need to prioritize. So it's that effort sometimes that people think, oh, I don't want to do that. You've got to do the hard things. You've got to do these kind of things if you're going to run a successful business, right? The business does not run on fresh air. It doesn't run solely on referrals or hope marketing. So I feel that, yeah, interest in buying intent can often be the signals that are missed by the founders, for sure.
And it's hard to tell the difference between curiosity and actual intent sometimes, right? Because everyone is saying, oh, let me think about it. Sounds interesting, right?
Yeah, this is a really interesting. This is probably one of the biggest objections that my clients get. Let me think about it. Let me think about it can mean several things. If I'm selling to one person and it's coaching services, let me think about it can mean it's a soft no. Like, I'm not interested. I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say no to your face because I don't want to offend you or reject you. It can mean I genuinely need to think of it. It's very rare that it means I need to think about it, but usually there's an unaddressed concern. So a lot of people won't make a decision to buy like a 5K, 10K service on one call. They might need another 24 to 48 hours to say, I need to think about it. Okay. When you say you need to think about it, what do you need to, is it the timing? Is it the price? Is it the scope? Let's address this now while we're on the call. Most founders don't do that. they let them think about it and hope that they're going to say yes. So we need to challenge the objection in the moment, because in the moment it's real time. We are never going to get that back. As soon as we hang up the call, they're going to be doing another thing. So we need to know, what does let me think about it mean? Really understand what's going on behind that. Some people need to marinate a decision for 24 to 48 hours. I usually call them on, if I feel that they're bullshitting, I will say, I don't feel like you're really convinced here. Because when you say you need to think about it, it's usually a way to tell me no. Without, if I feel that that's the case, right? But you've got to feel it depends how they say it. So it's a nuance. It might genuinely mean they just want to say yes. I had a lady yesterday, we were on a call. She's like, I never make a decision on the first call. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Neither do I. But if I'm going to take longer than 24 to 48 hours, I'm probably not doing it. And that's my case. So what have I done there? I've helped her to feel at ease, but I've shared my own kind of how I process and make decisions. 24 hours later, she was like, yeah, I'm doing it. Send me the payment link. So the worst thing to do here would be say, oh, here's the payment link. Take the payment, push the payment link on the call. No, because she wasn't going to make a decision on the call. So you need to understand, what does let me think about it mean? Because it could be that they don't like that. It's a timing thing. It could be, it's only ever timing, money, budget, or need, right? Do they feel they need it? Is the pain big enough that they need to take action now rather than later? You really need to understand that before you present your offer when you're on a call. And that's where a lot of people, ideally, we want to preempt objections, right? We want to kind of, I need to think about it is one that's kind of more challenging to preempt. But depending on the information that we're given by the other person, we can basically say, hey, and you might want to think about this before you make a decision. And that's perfectly fine. But I want to address what you might be feeling when you say that on this call, right? I want to address that before we hang up. So you really want to call out what they might be thinking or feeling. And I actually built AI around this. So whenever I get on a call, my clients get on a call, they understand like the common objections that will come up and how to handle them or how to prevent them happening. But yeah, it's a big one, and there's more. And the objections can mean so many different things, but you need to understand in that moment, if you've done the call well, then you've got to be able to challenge them on the objection.
I feel that a lot of times what we as humans do, then we panic in a way and then send a lot of too much information as a follow-up, right?
Here's the thing is that some people, if you're selling a 5 to 20K deal, you probably don't need a proposal. You want to take them through whatever it is. Is there a PowerPoint? Is there a deck? Is there a Canva brochure? You want to take them through that on the call. So I say, what do you need to see? When you say you want to send me information is another one, like, I'm not interested. I'm not going to do it. If they ask to see something, I say, well, let's see it. I've got some time now. Let's address this now. What do you need to see? Oh, I need to see what it looks like at the layout, or I need to see like what I'm going to get with this service. Great. Open up whatever it is and take them through it. Some people are visual, so they like to see. I'm visual, right? So I like to see something. But most of the time, after the call, sending them a brochure is not going to make them say yes most of the time, or a deck, right? Take them through that deck on the call. And then if you have to send it and they ask you to send it, but it's much better that you get that feedback in real time, right? So many people fall into this trap. Send me an email with some information. Okay. And then they think that they're getting a yes and they're getting a no.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the other hand, they're doing the same when they want to avoid uncomfortable conversation, right? Oh, I'll call you back, right?
So many people avoid, you're absolutely right, Marco. They avoid that uncomfortable conversation. And we need to address that in real time. We need to get to I want to leave that call knowing that I got to the truth, right? Obviously we want a sale, but we want to know, hey, are you wasting my time? Is this, well, they're not usually wasting your time, but are you actually going to do this, or is this not happening? And You need that and they need that as well. So we need to kind of give them permission to say what they really think and feel. Because, and there's ways to do that, especially if you're selling a bigger, higher stakes B2B deal. There's ways that you will give them permission to say how they feel so that you don't leave that call thinking, oh, I've got a deal here. I'm going to put it in my pipeline. You ain't got a deal. And obviously selling more complex deals and selling to C-suite is different. So you're going to have a different process in place. But if you're selling coaching services or a 5 to 20K offer, you want to get a yes on the call or a yes in principle. And then it's like in the next kind of day or so, you're sending the payment link or you're getting an answer from them either way. Are they doing this or not? That's how it is. And there's a lot of people who aren't very smooth with that process. They've not had sales experience, so it's normal.
And that's super real because especially for founders and people in general who don't want to feel pushy, right?
Yeah.
They have a good intention, but in a way, conversation becomes too vague because they're tiptoeing around it.
Nobody wants to feel pushy, but there's ways that the way that you say stuff, ultimately, does it come across as assertive or pushy? There's a difference between being assertive and pushy. When someone says, oh, I need a week to decide. I'm like, okay, so you need a week to decide, but you told me that you're stuck with X. You're not getting enough clients. You told me that you're stuck with the lead generation. So, what's waiting another week what's the waiting another week going to do for you? And then I like, have you considered, and they might have a genuine, maybe they're going to a funeral or a wedding, who knows? There might be something genuine happening that they need a week. But most of the time, that person is going into retreat, delay mode. They're saying, I like this, but I'm not really convinced that in the offer, in you or in myself. It's usually, so I always ask questions like, if I feel I need to, I'll say, do you trust that I'm the person to help you with this? If I feel that that's a necessary question, do you trust yourself to put in the work and do what we need to do? Do you trust the process? There's 3 things that they need to trust. And that's very telling, so when you're getting to the truth by asking those questions. And then I might say, have you considered that taking a week or 2 weeks to decide is actually the reason that you're stuck right now? That's a much nicer way of asking that. I'm not being pushy. I'm challenging them. And especially if you're a coach, the whole reason that somebody or a business is paying you money is to flip in. You're not a therapist. You're there to challenge that person. Therapists will be like, oh, okay, therapists don't guide you on what you need to do. They don't challenge you. It's very different. And there's so many people who are coaches who are behaving like therapists, and this is why they're not making enough money or they're making more. Challenge that person in a good way to think about what they're doing, that perhaps the consequence of this slow decision making is due to the fact that there's an issue, there's a mindset issue here, or there's something that's happened. People love it. They feel more respected and more listened to, and that you're building trust by asking these questions. You've got to make people think about what they're doing and why they're delaying. Do they believe enough in themselves? This is one of the reasons that businesses, cruise and people don't reach the potential that they're meant to, because the mind isn't quite there with it. People, I see some great people, but there's always maybe something missing. And oftentimes it's the mindset has to catch up. Oh, super important. If I'm closing a big B2B deal, I'm not going to say, hey, have you considered that you're taking this long? This is a problem? No, because B2B deals, they, depending on the size of the deal, depending on who you're selling to, depending what industry it is in, will take longer. And you need to ask the question. You still need to, a lot of them in B2B deals, they'll say, send me information, need to think about it, need to involve the stakeholders. You need to get to the behind those objections as quickly as possible, but in the best way possible, where they don't feel attacked.
I mean, it's all about creating clarity, right? Not overwhelming people with information. Oh, I can do this and that. Just be clear.
You have to, that person has to feel that you're the person that gives them clarity, like 100%. Exactly. that you trust, that you are the trusted source. And now, when I get on calls with buyers, they've been on my website. They've looked on Chat and Claude about me. Thankfully, LinkedIn pulls, I think after Reddit, LinkedIn is the second channel where AI pulls kind of information about you. They've done their research now. They're far more savvy than they were a year ago, 2 years ago. They really are coming to that call thinking, I've watched a few of your testimonial videos. So you need to have, you need to have your armor in your I say your armor, but your assets, things that make you really great, LinkedIn recommendations, a basic site. I mean, you don't need a website so much, but if you're further along, you need something where you can showcase what you've done. But people get obsessed with that. They want the website before they think the website's going to bring them clients. I'm like, it's only going to bring you clients if there's SEO. I'm like, get on LinkedIn, start conversations, create content that drives those conversations. So, a lot of people go down this rabbit hole of a bloody website. Sorry, I need a website. You absolutely don't. But eventually, when you're like 2 or 3 years in, it makes sense to have some really good video case studies where people can, go and find out what you've done with other people like them. Do you actually have the proof? But still, even without that, you can create that trust and clarity just by how you make that person feel from the very first touch through to the call, the close, and everything.
I mean, and so nowadays, as you mentioned, that so much depends on the, let's say, call it founder's mood nowadays, confidence or just memory, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's AI to help with that memory and to help us do kind of tasks to make us efficient. A lot of founders think tools will save them. Oh, if I just have this tool and plug everything in nice and beautiful, the tool will do all the selling for me. I'm like, hey, if I give you, this is a great quote, if I give you Michelangelo's paintbrush right now, you are not going to paint the Sistine Chapel like him. Right?
Exactly.
You're absolutely not going to do it. That's the thing. If you've not learned the basics of painting and if you've not really got into it and got your hands dirty, then you're not going to paint this. I'm sorry, but you're really not going to paint the Sistine Chapel when I give you those tools. And it's the same with, with the tools. You need to learn how to do it first. You need to really master it and be good at it before you decide to tool up. You can tool up. I'm not against tools at all. I'm for everything to make our lives more efficient as founders. But a lot of people end up in rabbit holes of distraction. And you have to be really, really careful, because the question is always, is what I'm doing contributing to my future income and revenue? Is this action that I'm doing right now helping my future income and revenue, like immediate action, not like fiddling around in Claude, and unless you're prepared using some of my stuff in there to help you, build your system, but it's actually doing the things that are going to make you money. So doing a calendar audit on, okay, when in my calendar, I'm always suspicious of people that are too busy and have too much in their calendar, because I'm thinking, what are they focusing on? If they can't book a call with me this week or at least next week, then something is not right. There's too much going on. They need to remove themselves. They need to be doing the things that are going to make them money. So there's having a time audit, making sure that you're blocking time to do your outreach and that you're blocking time. Maybe it's going to be 2 hours a day in the beginning, because you're going to need to really get used to it. It's a new habit. The habit creates the goal. The goal, then with the habit, you have the consistency and the discipline. So you're less likely not to do it, right? We all have days we don't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to go to the gym today, but I went. I'm going tomorrow and I'm going on Thursday. Friday's my day off. I'm away at the weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, I'll be doing some kind of gym outdoor activity, but I only take 1 day off a week. Top athletes, Serena Williams, she ain't skiving. She's training probably every single day. As a founder, you're the athlete of the business. When I was a sales rep for 23 years in B2B corporate, we were the athletes of the business, because if we weren't selling, the business wasn't a business. Like, the money has to come in to pay everybody. So this is the thing, is that you've got to put yourself as that top athlete. You've got to believe relentlessly believe in your service and your results and that they're going to get better and better and better, you've got to have the resilience and man up and be like, oh, man up, or I don't know what the right word is. I say grow up. It's like you're going to have to do hard things if you want results, if you want to make more money. And most people do want more money, but they don't want the kind of extra work that comes with it. And again, it's like, you can design, if it means charging higher price and getting fewer clients, protected energy, and then, you're really talking. But when business is making more money, you will feel good about it in some way, provided that you're approaching it from the kind of, your nervous system has to be aligned with it as well. But then you think, okay, how do I go bigger and bigger and protect my energy and my time? So, money solves a lot of problems. Nobody wants to earn less money. But a lot of people stay on a plateau because they're not having enough of these uncomfortable conversations that are going to make them money, period. And we should always be, I say, fixing the roof when the sun's shining, right? Not when the problem is a problem and then it's like, oh, we have to do this. We should always be building our reserves, always. And I say to some of, people that come to me and clients are like, I've got clients for the next 6 months or 12 months. I'm like, great. Okay, so you've got clients next 12 months. What happens after that? What happens if one of those clients decides not to work with you? What happens if something happens and you just don't know, even though they might have paid the money or they've signed the contract, something can go wrong. So are you building a backup, right? Are you building a backup, even if you're at capacity? Are you thinking long term? Too many people think short term when it comes to pipeline. And this is another thing. One of my clients lost a big whale because the pipeline hadn't been prioritized either. So it was much more of a knock. You need to be thinking, if you're getting clients for between now and the rest of December, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You're obviously doing some great things. You need to be thinking beyond then. You need to be thinking, what happens if something happens? What are the black swan events, right? Chris Voss talks about your known unknowns and your unknown unknowns. There could be a crisis that might shift things. We just don't know. So if we can control our pipeline building, then we usually the outcome, in other words, the deals, the money takes care of itself.
Yeah. And if sales depend on founders' mood solely, it's probably not a sales system yet, right?
It's not a sales system. And I think, the founder's mood, regardless of how you feel, the business doesn't care how you feel. You've got to be top of your game. You've got to be, the energy has to be there. People are buying your energy, right? You've got to show up to calls in the best way possible. You got to detach from the actual outcome, enjoy it, make sure you ask the right questions. Yeah, if your business depends on your mood, better you go and be an employee. Simple as that. Work for someone else, build somebody else's dream. Some people prefer that. That's totally fine. I was an employee for many years. I'm a person that I've come from quite. I had a lot of predictability in my childhood, and that changed when my mother died, and then I had subsequent deaths after that. And I think I've had that predictability, so I know what predictability feels like. But I also had a lot of unpredictable things that I couldn't change, things that were beyond my control. So I like to turn those kind of things into something predictable. I like to create predictability. So I see myself, for my clients, I have a duty of care to them, but I'm also helping them create predictability, because we never know. At some moment, our lives might change. They'll be impacted by something, a big event, something. I'm not saying that, everybody goes through hardships at some point, even if it's later on in life. If we can say to ourselves, well, it's good that I'm getting rejected, or it's good that I have, I'm at this difficult point, because what this difficult point is doing is it's teaching me how to not be in that difficult point again. And I'm learning valuable skills that will mean. So for me, when I went through sort of the biggest grief of my life at 17, it taught me to be, anything else is just not a problem. right? Our health is our main thing. Anything else on top of that is just really not a problem. And I think sometimes in our minds, people can catastrophize. I know I used to before this, like something catastrophic this is catastrophic that's happening. It's terrible. And, our business depends on the story we tell ourselves. So we have to almost be delusional. We're the best. When we get a hard thing that happens, whatever it is, I'm talking about in the business, we have to say, good, it's here to test me. It's here to make me better. It's here. I'm glad that I've had these challenges because it's made me a better person. And it's also made me show up in the right way for other people. And I think that's a massive advantage. And I know that some people might be listening to this. I mean, obviously, for me, this was over 30 years ago that I experienced, grief firsthand, very, very, all of a sudden everything was fine. And then it wasn't, from 24 hours, stuff changed. So, the lesson here is, I think it's, we need to go through the experience, but we need to appreciate what the lesson is telling us. The universe is telling us something. For me, it was that I'm here to help others and empower others to create this predictability and do uncomfortable things. Well, it's not as uncomfortable as people think, but it's to make the hard easier, because if we master the hard, we're then on to the next thing and the next thing. And part of us kind of being good humans is growing and accepting that we need to get out of we need to change. We need to change, and we need to know when we need to change as well. And, for me, I started a fashion thing on Instagram. It didn't really take off. And then eventually 5 years ago, I posted on LinkedIn, and I had like 3,000 followers. And then, my LinkedIn took off, and LinkedIn was the place where it was meant to happen. So I think we've got to really be good at spotting the signs. I always say, I teach my clients the signals. You need to spot the signals. You need to really understand like when a buyer's there, and you need to start the conversations. But in life as well, it's spotting the signs before it's too late is another thing. Like really leaning into that. And you're right, there's people who choose to be victims, which that's their choice. It's a choice. And there's people that choose to use it as fuel to the fire, and that's a choice as well. 9 out of 10 people are much happier when they use it, they choose the fuel to the fire. So I think, people need to sometimes realize that sooner than they think.
And as you mentioned, a lot of founders, especially nowadays, use LinkedIn specifically.
Yeah.
But still don't turn attention into clients, as we discussed. So in your opinion, what are they usually missing? What's the most glaring thing that's missed here?
There's a few things, but they focus on sort of the personal branding side, getting loads of followers and engagement. I see a lot of people doing that. Those people aren't making the money that you think they are. Simple. I've seen this many times over. And for people I've worked with, not mentioning any names, but it's incredible. People think that if you get more attention, somehow you're more of an authority. You don't have to be. You just need to have a few good posts each week and the right people seeing them. You don't need this massive, let's go viral kind of thing to get clients and to get leads. And that's where people kind of, and then if they don't get that, they hate social media, or they blame LinkedIn for not getting them the results.
Algorithm, right?
And the algorithm. The algorithm's always changing. It goes up and down. It hits everybody. If you're playing for the algorithm, then you're playing a losing game. Keep it in mind. I'm mindful of content that I know now when I put a post out, I know more or less how it's going to perform just from my head, right? The kind of people it's going to bring versus the kind of don't. And sometimes I'm surprised. Things have changed recently with 360 Brew, but I'm not obsessing over it. I know what I need my clients to see. What does your audience need to see? How do they need to see you? Because there's nothing worse than doing all of this content that builds a personal brand, but it doesn't really bring you the money that you want. Really what you want is better paying clients, more energy and time, and just the tweaks are not in the personal branding. So I would say, yeah, don't go down that route and think, oh yeah, this is perfect, you know?
And that's useful because it separates being seen from being trusted, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Visibility is not the same as buyer movement.
No, and you can look at some people's posts and see they're going viral all the time, and you think, are they really an authority? Are they like use it? You know, are they actually an authority in what they're doing? This is the thing that we see there's a lot of fake authority about. Where anyone can grow a personal brand and look like they're doing really well with lots of followers and lots of engagement. But does that mean they're the right person to work with or business to work with? You know, these are questions to be asking. Getting really honest about what you want. If you want virality and likes and you're just doing it for fun, fantastic, then that's fine. But most people don't want that. They think they do. One of my contrarian posts was, you think you need a personal brand, you don't. You know, I got a lot, it didn't, it didn't go viral, but it did get a lot of attention from the right people who are like, yeah, she's saying something that, you know, most people aren't really saying, you know, they're not.
And you mentioned that tools got faster, but thinking didn't, right? And AI is in a way, in a lot of ways, making sales even worse nowadays. Because it's in a way true, because AI in a way is not a problem itself. It's just a tool, right? It's just a tool to provide you certain output.
How you train the AI? So my AI is trained on my calls, thousands of DMs, thousands of calls, where there's a whole process and system. So many people are just using dumpster fire, normal AI, which isn't trained on anything, and they think it's going to work. And at least if it's proprietary and it's trained on your expertise and you can share it with your clients to help them kind of, you know, a lot of people get stuck on the DMs. They don't know how to have a conversation that will lead to a meeting. So I developed an AI in Claude and in ChatGPT, a GPT that helps them do that in a really easy way, right? It even comes up with like, it's trained on so many human conversations that the nuance and the kind of fun, there's a fun element to it as well. And there's a serious element, but it is really, really good. Like it just gets better and better and better the more we train it. So yes, it helps, but it's trained on my system. That kind of AI, yeah, it's good, it helps. But you also want to make sure that you're using things like voice notes and videos, because then we know it's not AI, right? Eventually, maybe AI will be so good it will replace us completely and do our videos, and it'll be Charlotte AI that'll be doing the video, but it'll be so good you'll be like, oh my God. So I think we need to keep an open mind about it, and not be, it's, you know, it helps businesses become more efficient. Selling is really hard. And, you know, people think about what they need to say. I think it helps you it doesn't take away you still have to audit the conversation and the message before you send it. But you've got to be thinking, where is this going, right? Where is the conversation leading? So I'm all for it in situations like that, when you're preparing for a call, when you've had your call, you know, you can sense what the person, my AI senses the personality of the other person based on how they answer the questions. And it's spot on. Because I thought, you were right about that personality type. They're a D or an S or a C. So it structures the whole conversation. The guide to the conversation is based on how they actually are. You know, it says like, talk fast because they're a commander type. Talk slow because they're analytical. They like to kind of process. Absolutely amazed with some of what it can do just by analyzing questions and kind of DM conversations that I give it.
Yeah, because AI is not a problem. It's weak thinking being scaled faster nowadays, right?
Yes.
Because AI makes, in a way, outreach faster, super fast, but it won't make lazy thinking relevant, or you just prompting, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and in a way, what do you think, let's say, what should AI never replace in a premium buyer conversation, in your opinion?
Well, the thing is that you can't have AI do the call for you, your AI version. It shouldn't be replacing premium People buying premium want a premium experience. Can it give a premium experience in the moment? No. Can it help you to give a premium experience? Yes, but it needs the human. You're going to need to get on a call. You're going to need to show your face, right? People don't want to get on a call with AI Charlotte. You know, they're not at that stage yet. They want to understand. They want to feel that I'm there and I'm going to help them, and that they're going to get results with me, and that they need to feel me, and they want to be on a call with me, or maybe one of my team, but an actual human being, not an AI. You know, I've built businesses and worked in corporate and done so much face to face. And there's also a lot of wasted time in the face to face, you know, in the networking. I see people waste time and be in the wrong rooms. And at least now online, I can filter that much better, and I have more control over who I want to meet with versus who I don't want to meet with. So
Exactly.
I think a lot of people struggle, especially like Gen X, millennials, Gen Zs, maybe less, with the online world because they're not used to it. They've been used to in person. So the transition of how do I book a meeting and find prospects online, it seems to me like dating is bloody horrible. You know, people didn't like online dating when it came. Now people don't complain about it, or they might do and say, well, you know, it's set up to make you want more and all these kind of things like with dopamine. But all in all, it's been a good thing, right? When people were using horses and carts as cars, nobody complained back then because there were no cars, so nobody knew any different. But they wouldn't want to walk when they could take their horse for a long distance. And now it's like, should we go back to horses just because, you know, cars are great, but I'd rather have my horse? I think it's very limited thinking. Yeah. So you see, this is the philosophy, my philosophy on AI. It's like, would I go back to not using AI and being, you know, booking online meetings, building an online business? Why don't I just build that business in person? 100%. It's like, no, it's not efficient.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm taking from this is that in a way, premium sales is not really about pushing harder, right? It's about helping the buyer get clear enough to make a real decision in the whole buying process.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when that clarity is missing, the founder usually feels it after the call. The buyer says, let me think about it.
Yeah.
And the founder hears, cool, now we go overthink everything, right? And that's where the decision load, in a way, connects to me, right?
Yeah.
So before founders ask for more leads, maybe the better question is, are the conversations I already actually have helping buyers decide, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the thing. It's like, it's not always more leads. It's like, have a look at the leads that you've got and see what's not converting. Let's analyze that first before we think about throwing more mud at the wall to see if it will stick, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much for everything. I know that you're in a way in a hurry, but where in general, where should people go and learn more about your work?
So please go to LinkedIn. I am linkedin.com/in Charlotte Lloyd Sales. That's how you will find me. That's where I built my entire business. Love LinkedIn. It is the best platform in my opinion. I'm also on Instagram as Charlotte Lloyd Sales as well. There's a little bit more video reels there behind the scenes. That's it. I have a website, thecharlottellloyd.com, but do reach out to me. Say what you liked about this podcast, and tell me that you came from Marco's podcast, because I get a lot of connection requests and so many people connect to me blank, and I hate it because I like a good message for a start, and I like to see where you came from and what was good about this discussion. So do drop me a note with your connection request.